What's up? This is Richie from the Where We Wild YouTube channel, and today I got a Shimano Metanium 101 HG. Pretty sick, man. Just got it from Japan. It's pretty much the exact same reel as the American Metanium MGL 150B. So if you're trying to take that apart, this apart, same deal, man. They're all the same reel pretty much. Just some slight differences. Like the one from Japan has a slightly smaller handle and knobs, stuff like that, but pretty much all the same reel. Should play the exact same way. So we're gonna tear it all apart, tune it up, get it running nice and smooth, so if you're at home trying to take yours apart, you can follow along and hopefully it'll help you out. Let's get into it, man. All right, this thing's sick, dude. Pretty sick. Pretty sick. Let's get into this thing. First and foremost, you got a screw on the outside here you got to get to first. I'm just going to start with a little bit of a flathead. I'm just going to take it really easy here. This might be a little big. Yeah, works good. I like to be really gentle with these screws, man, and a lot of times I'll go with a flathead instead of the Phillips, just because sometimes the Phillips can strip them out on you a little easier. A lot of times, you know, these screws are back ordered, stuff like that, so you just want to take it easy on them. Don't want to strip them out. And we got our nut. Looks to be a 10 millimeter. And it should be clockwise to the right, or is it left on this reel? Oh man, this thing's on there good, boy. I'm a little nervous right now. There we go. My first instinct was correct. Clockwise to the right. You just want to bust it loose and then move on to your fingers. This one's on there good, dude. Come on, baby. There she is. Now, I'm probably going to replace this handle because the Japanese version here, it's just kind of too small. And I'm a big boy and I like bigger handles, so I may order the 151 off of the Shimano parts website, which would be the American size handle, and then the 8-gear ratios are usually bigger handles. So I may order that and fire this on here, or go with like a GOMEXUS handle, which are pretty sick. But for now, I'm just gonna take this thing apart. Now, be real careful here. Notice I got pressure continuously on this thing. That little pin and spring there can go flying on you, and you just wanna be super careful with it. Because if that goes, man, it's just about game over. You're never gonna find it. So we're just gonna place that down on the side. And then this little piece here that always gets stuck to the back of that handle, those rivets face down, so it grabs that little pin and spring, and that's what makes your drag star click. So we're just gonna put that there. The handle. Whoa, all right. I don't know if I've ever seen a spring like that before. That's pretty sick right there. I've never taken apart a Metanium before, so this is new to me, but it should be pretty much the same game. All right, this is clockwise to the right, this nut, and I'm just holding the spool a little bit just so it doesn't spin on me. All right, and then we got your usual story here with Shimano reels. You got a little bit of a washer underneath, half copper side, half silver side. There it is. And the copper side was facing down. So we're just gonna keep that right there. Actually, flip it that way. Next up, you got some spring tension washers here that are usually sitting back to back, like back to back parentheses. And that just gives you a little bit of a spring action to your little spacer spring action to your star drag. I'll put that up on the screen. They're always sitting back to back like that, and that's what gives it a little spring effect. Next up, I think I see a little bit of a washer sitting there on top of the roller clutch inner tube, which I don't know if I'm going to be able to get to right now. It's on there pretty flush. Huh. Might have to wait till later to get that bad boy out of there. No, I think I got it. Here it is. All right. Now we can go ahead and take this spool out because I was just using it for leverage. So you got the door on the side. Just swings up. Now that's the one downside I think for this reel. Is I like the doors that just pop open, then they swing, you can't lose them. This thing is a little, seems anyway, like a little bit more difficult to get this door off and the spool out, which kind of sucks, but it is pretty looking. I will give it that. So I'm just taking my time with this, trying to be gentle. Come on, baby. There it is. Let's get the spool out of there. All right, so we got two bearings to deal with here. First one is on the spool. Pretty sick. Now, if you need to replace that or take that off, you're gonna need a special little pair of pliers or a tool to push that pin through and get that thing up. I don't think we're gonna have to replace a brand new bearing, so I'm just gonna give it a tiny little wipe off. Make sure there's no factory grease on it. I don't like any grease on my bearings. I just like oil. And speaking of oil, we're going to drop a little bit in. I will link this Lucas Reel oil and everything else I'm using in the video description, the mat, the tools, oil, grease. So if you need to pick something up for yourself, it will be in that video description for you. A little bit of oil. Just work that in a little bit. Put that up there to rest. Now we got a bearing down in here, and to get at that, which isn't necessary, we could just drop a little oil right there, but I suppose just to show you, we got to get this little spring clip out of here to get the bearing out. And you just got to look down in there and you'll see it, and you just want to start on a side that's, you'll see like a little bit of a break in it. You just want to keep your finger over it and just gently pry it up. There we go. Tiny little guy. Take our little bearing remover. Try to scoop in there a little bit. Here we go. Wow, these bearings are sick. Got that little O-ring on them. That's pretty nasty, man. Pretty sick. That's what I love about these JDM reels, man. They come with the JDM bearings that are always smoother. Seems like always smoother than the American version bearings. I don't know why, but they are. So we're just gonna drop a little bit of fresh oil in there, a little drink. We'll work it in there. Now I believe that little washer was, or O-ring on the bearing was facing up. Set that down in there. And we just got to get our spring clip back in. And usually I can get away with my fingernail for doing that. But we'll see. I need a little bigger bit here to get this thing back in though. Just want to keep your finger over it and just kind of start with one side and just guide her in. It's very fine, this one. It's not that strong. All right, that's all flush into place, looking good. Moving on. Next up, we got this tension knob here. I'm just gonna slowly screw it off counterclockwise. Got a bearing in there. Another one of those little spring clips. Very, very dainty little guy. All these spring clips so far have been like super lightweight. Just nice and easy. Now you know what? I honestly don't even know if I'm going to be able to get this bearing right now. It's a tiny, tiny, tiny little bearing. There we go. And that just sat on top of the pinion gear. That little wipe off. A little bit of oil. Nice. Just gonna fire that back in there. And it just sits right around that pinion gear. Just want to make sure it's nice and flush. And we can throw this little clip back in. And now once again, man, you didn't have to take all these bearings out. You could have just dropped some oil in there and you're good. But if you need to replace them or whatever, that's how they come out. This might be a little difficult. You really just want to make sure. You're going to hear it snap. There it is. Sits in there nice and flush. All right, tension knob's back on. And now we can bust this thing open and get to the inner workings. All right, what do we got here? So this is pretty sick. You got no screws on the outside. Seems like you got one on the back, two on the back, possibly three on the back to get this cover off. And I'm hoping that's it. Let's see what happens. Let's start with this top one here. Just going with a flat head, nice and gentle. This thing's in there pretty tight. This one might have some sort of rubber piece around it or something like that. But just make sure you get a good lock up. And just take it nice and easy. A little bit of Loctite on there or something like that. So I'm just going to place these on the mat in the order of which I found them, just to make sure I know where they go later, in case they're different sizes. Then I imagine there's one more screw here. You can probably see down in there. That one's most likely got to go. Sorry, you're not going to get a good view on it, but it's right down in there. It's very hard to see in there. Just gotta have a little patience. And just take it easy. These are very delicate pieces you're dealing with here. All right. There's that screw. Now we should be able to get this off. Just pull straight up, nice and slow. There's that main gear. Pull that off. Nice and easy. We got our springs, which are loaded with grease. Underneath here, looks like you have a little bit of a top of your main gear. Very light. It's in there like that. Wow, that's crazy that the drag washer doesn't take up the whole inside there. And you got your roller clutch inner tube down in here. Just gonna pull that out. I'm just going to give that a little bit of a wipe out in there. A little extra grease. Now that's that bearing that we took care of earlier. I believe, unless there's two of them in there. I don't think there is though. Alright, what do we got here? Pinion gear. Just going to slowly pull up on the pinion gear and yoke. Covered in grease, bro. Jeez. Gonna wipe that off. And then in here you got a little bit of extra grease. And we can pull up on our little ratchet. Another little drag washer. And then under here, you got your main bearing here. You got another bearing underneath this, possibly another one underneath that. So I'm debating whether I want to pull up on this thing and get in there and actually take that bearing out, or if I just want to drop a little oil underneath it. It's brand new, man, so yeah. All right, so I'm going to start here. I'm just going to wipe off any grease that's on this main bearing. I'm just going to drop a little bit of oil on that, right on the lip. I'm just going to take my bearing tester and work that in a little bit. Now I'm debating whether I want to take this thing off here and get underneath that, or just drop a little oil in. I may just drop a little oil in, but you know, you can totally take off this screw and that screw here, and it seems like you would have to pull this little pin, this little I guess C-clip or E-clip, pull that out of there too to get that up and off, and then this off. So that might be a little bit of a pain. So I think the smarter thing to do here, since it's brand new and these bearings are brand new, is just to take a little bit of oil on that needle and try to get it right underneath that. And that should work its way down into that bearing there. If that bearing was fried, you'd have no choice, but just be aware you got those bearings in there. Feels pretty good though. All right. Now, they already have a pretty good amount of grease on here, so I'm probably not gonna mess with it, but if this thing was bone dry, I would take a little bit of my Pen Real Grease, which will be linked in the description as well. Get a little on that brush, and I would just hit this little arm here, a little bit on the spring, a little bit in this chute here, and then I'd probably just run it right in between these two gears here, just like that. But you don't want to go crazy here. You want to keep it pretty light. But they already have some on there, so you know there's really no need. But you know, just to show you the blue spreading, you know, if you just run it right in between those, it's a good way to just hit them both at the same time. But yeah, everything else is pretty well greased here from the factory, so I think we're good. All right, let's check out these, well, one actually, which is pretty nuts in this main gear, this drag washer, that we're gonna probably add a little something to. This tiny little wipe out. That gear is pretty dry, but it's clean. I like that. All right, so our main drag washer here, we're just gonna hook up with a tiny little bit of Cal's Universal Reel and Star Drag Grease, just the tiniest little bit of peanut butter, as I like to call it. And we're just gonna put a little on, let it soak it up like a sponge, just a nice, thin, clean coating. Wiping off a little bit of factory carbon fiber, get that out of there. You don't want too much, man, because then your drag will slip, but the whole point of this is to just prolong the life of your drag washers. So you just want a nice, clean coating. Nothing crazy though, just make it shiny. It's wild. It just soaks it up like a sponge. But you don't want it all gunky and nuts. All right, that's pretty. Just a nice, clean little shine. And that sits right around the inside of that gear. And we're gonna do the same thing with this piece, just like a different kind of drag washer. I'm just gonna put the tiniest little coating on it. Very, very light, dude. Very, very light. Almost nothing. In this piece, by the way, there's like a little indentation, and that was facing down. And then the flat side was facing up. All right, and so real quick, we're just gonna hook up our pinion gear and our main gear with a little bit of fresh grease. Nothing crazy, but just a little something, something. You don't need to cover all of it. I'm just gonna place this back on top. And you just wanna maybe 50%, 50, 60%. And what I like to do is I just like to give it a few taps. And then I just take my finger and smash all that into the teeth. These are very, very fine teeth on this gear. A little bit on the other side. You definitely don't want too much, man, because then it's going to get kind of like heavy and chunky feeling on you. You want it nice and light and smooth. Just a little something, something in there. These gears are very, very fine. And then that'll all spread out once it starts rolling. And then it's going to share it with this pinion gear. So, keeping it pretty light here. Let me just throw a little bit on our pinion, right up on these teeth here. That's it. Nothing ridiculous. There's no need. All right, so we're just about ready to roll here, man. There's a good amount of grease still on these posts, but if there wasn't, I would just take a tiny little bit here, throw it on these posts, a little bit on the yoke here, but there's a decent amount on here, so we're good. Now you just want to make sure these ramps are going to match up with these, or it won't sit right, but you can usually tell pretty instantly if it's upside down or not. There's just those two ramps and they fit perfect. So we're going to throw our pinion gear back in here, line it up with those two posts, and just slide it on down. And make sure that sits all the way down in there flush where the ramps of the yoke meet the ramps of the white part around it. All right, next up, we're just going to throw our ratchet on here, which is keyed. That fell perfectly, of course, but sometimes you'll throw it on there and it'll sit like that, and the reel's not going to work if you do that. So you just want to slightly turn it until the square falls into the square. Just like that. It's got to be completely flush, so when you hit that button, it sends this over this way and it catches it. If that's not flush, it ain't going to fly. So you got your little crazy looking drag washer, which I have no idea what that's made out of, man. That's pretty crazy. I'm just gonna wipe off this roller clutch inner tube. And we can throw our main gear back on. That top part is keyed. Just want to slowly set it down so it sits next to this pinion gear. Just like that. And you can throw your top piece back on, and remember that piece on the bottom is meant to push down on that drag washer so the flat side faces up. Send that down in there. Make sure that's all flush too, because that's keyed as well. And you got your springs. No gunk on them. Then you got your roller clutch inner tube, which is also keyed. So you want to make sure that those two little forks, or whatever you want to call them, fit in these holes down here perfect. If it sits like that, no go. It's got to be perfect, flush. All right, so quick look around here. Make sure we did everything we needed to do. Hooked up the gears, hooked up the drag, hooked up the bearings. Everything looks good. We got our springs back on, roller clutch inner tube back on. I think we're ready to rock and roll, man. Let's put this thing back together. Little side plate here. Actually, you know what? There's a little bit of a bearing right here too, and it's got a lot of grease on it. So I don't want to forget about that. See if we can get that out real fast. Just gently. Make sure there's no washer or anything on it attached. Yeah, this one's got a lot of grease on it, dude. Let's clean that one up just really quickly. Don't want to forget about it. A lot of bearings on this reel, dude. And the ones that are very easy to get to, you always want to hook up. All right. Set that on there. A little bit of a drink. Just gonna give a tiny little wipe out in here, just because I didn't like the amount of grease that was sitting in there. Put that back in. Make sure it sits nice and flush. All right, now we can get our door back on. Or side plate, rather. Call it the door sometimes. All right, all good. Always take that second to double check though. You know what I'm saying? Always take that second. All right. You just want to lay that on so it's nice and flush, nice and seamless. And we're going to throw in our screws. Start with this one up here just because it's very easy to get to. I'm just keeping pressure on this thing. Come on, dude. I might need a little help on these. I'm just going to go a little bit of a Phillips head, and I'm just going to take a tiny little bit of grease and put it on the end of my Phillips head here, which should help me get this thing to stick. Just to help me get it started. And then I'll finish up with the flathead. Let's go a little trick. Just put a little bit of blue grease on the tip of your bit. And a lot of times it'll stick on for you. It's so crazy, man. I have like a magnetic screwdriver here, but they never use material that works with it. It's very rare. And then we just got this one down on the back here, which is kind of a pain in the butt. It's like the frame's in the way on you, and there we go. Best to just set it in first, I suppose. Now I'm just going to switch over to the flathead just to tighten them all up. Got a nice little squeeze on this thing. I'm just going to sit down in here. Get a good lock up. God, it's so hard to see in there, man. All right, tight is tight. I just want to tighten up these. That was actually pretty good. It's very easy to slip off these and scratch the frame. I kind of did a tiny little bit on the inside, but it's okay because it's on the inside. So just be real careful. See how I just slipped off? I could have dragged it across the whole thing and scratched it. So just want to be careful. All right, we are just about ready to roll here. I suppose we could throw our spool back in. Actually, I'm going to keep these brakes on. They're all on right now. Guess I will just leave them like that for the moment. And we can throw our door back on. Just down to the left. Cool. Now let's get this handle back on. Get this bearing, make sure that bearing's in there nice and flush. Push down. So we got our first little washer here. Make sure that sits on there nice and flush. And we got our two little spacer washers, which are sitting back to back from each other. Then we got our little washer with the copper side down, attached to the, loves to stick to that, to the bottom of the little nut here. And you could totally separate it. Copper side down. Just try to get that on nice and straight. Counterclockwise to the left. And then you can hold the spool just to give you a tiny little bit of leverage. All right, then you got your spring. Pretty sick little spring. Then you got your drag star. And be very, very careful with this thing because that little part inside. Just want to support it. You just need to rotate it till this thing sits down nice and flush for you. For some reason it's not wanting to. I think because this spring is just extra tight. It's crazy, man. Serious pressure you need. That spring is no joke. So I'm just gonna keep pressure in there. Kind of distribute the weight. Kind of like you're throwing a fastball. Ooh, man, I'm slippery. I am slippery. Wow, this is one of the toughest ones I've ever done. It is really tight. Slowly getting that on there. Try to get it on even. There we go. I had serious pressure on that, dude. Serious pressure. That is no joke, that spring. Pretty sick. All right, so I'm not over tightening it by any means, but I just want to make sure that drag's all good. Button works. Everything looks good before I really tighten it up. Now usually here, you want to line up one of the points of the nut with this hole here so that this cover lines up for you. So I'm going to get it on to where I think it feels good. Man. So there's a little ways to go. You don't want to over tighten it. All right, that seems pretty good. But this part right here will usually let you know pretty instantly where you're at. Because the pattern underneath here has to match the pattern of the nut. So if you're too tight or not tight enough, and what's going to happen is you're going to see a big gap right there, and you need that to sit flush. So I probably over tightened it just a little bit, or maybe not enough. Not quite there. There it is. And you just want to make sure that it's seamless, no gap whatsoever, and then you got that wide open spot for your screw. That's what you want. And honestly, It's just the tiniest bit off. That's money. All right, we can throw our last little screw back in. Now I'm probably going to be replacing this handle, but I don't have the replacement yet, so I'm just putting this bad boy back on. All right, tight is tight. One last little thing here. I want to just drop a little bit of oil into this worm gear. Little on that side. Little on that side. And I just like to put one little drop where the handle meets the knobs, because you got a couple bearings in there. Work that in. And that's just about game over right there. Just want to take a couple minutes working all that brand new grease and oil. Usually takes about 20 or 30 seconds, and then you just kind of feel it break loose, and there it is. Jeez. Man, that's gross. That is really smooth, man. It feels really nice. So probably just gonna take it over to the couch, play with that button a little bit, just slowly work in all that fresh oil and grease, and it's just gonna get smoother and smoother and smoother, man. So, all right, well, there you have it, man. That's taking apart and tuning up the Shimano Metanium 101 HG, or if you got the Metanium MGL 150B, same thing, man, same reel, just a couple tiny little differences, but pretty much the same inner workings for sure. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to drop a like, and if you're into this sort of thing, don't forget to hit subscribe. We put a new video out every single week. And definitely check out the Shimano Reels playlist we have up on the channel. I got a lot of Shimano Reels I'm always taking apart, tuning up. Hopefully you'll find another one in that playlist that'll help you out as well. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time. Later.
If you want to see more videos just like this one, be sure to check out the rest of the Where We Wild YouTube channel, where we post a brand new video every week. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell icon so you get notified whenever we post a new adventure. Thanks for watching.
See ya.